I'm also inclined to think that we need to be able to have a highly interactive session so that it's not just a one directional flow of wisdom. So 5 minutes for each of the resource people, and then we will invite interventions so that we can be able to have a highly interactive session. So we want to begin with the principal, the College of Humanities and Social Sciences.
Our duty this afternoon is to really stimulate a conversation that we've started for some time now. And we've said that since we have a few projects, they are not many, but these projects can help us to have conversations as a college around the humanities and social sciences. And of course, one of the expected things that we normally discuss is the endangered status of humanities. Again, the question is, are these courses necessary and so on? But I want to actually talk about pockets of success. How do we identify our strengths? Because my argument is that humanities and social sciences globally has been under threat, but has actually weathered the turbulent waters. And wherever you go, there's this renewed realization that actually humanities and social sciences are at the core of a university. So even when people talk about, natural sciences are more important and so on, there's that renewed realization. And this is the time for us to regain the power to define ourselves, to regain the legitimacy to define ourselves. So I'm saying that, are we able to identify the sources of resilience of humanities in the current era? And if we are able to identify those sources of resilience, how do we scale them up? How do we drum up our core function as humanities? I must tell you that when you are in any gathering in other universities, you'll find that whatever is said, you'll find that the humanities gathering is more vibrant, is more relevant to global issues, and is sort of referred to when things are being discussed or tabled, which means that we cannot afford to let go that relevance, that key relevance, within the university, within the country, and globally. So we have pockets. I might be biased, but we have pockets of success, even in this university, that even with our difficulties in terms of funding, we have a number of publications coming out by individuals, by groups of researchers, and by researchers in global networks. What makes this possible? Is it possible to actually cling on these abilities and scale up our publication profile? Because once we publish, once we do more research, even with the limited funds that we have as a college as of now, look at this room. Each of the people in this room has a role in the projects that we have. Either you are a student, or you are a fellow, you are a dean, you are a mentor, you are all these things. So which means that in these capacities that we have, we could actually renew our vibrancy and have a much, academic vibrant college, and also be able to counter some of the reckless statements that we encounter. We cannot counter recklessness by being reckless. So first of all, our act in terms of teaching and learning needs to be, shame-proof. Results processing, dissertation, supervision, all those issues around quality, that needs to be shame-proof. That, once we have that, then we make another resolve around research, around publication, around academic ventures, such as public lectures, seminar series, anything, even at departmental level, school level. We make sure that we also make the students feel that they are in a university. Because sometimes also when we complain too much, we make the university very far from the students. They feel as if they are in some kind of market. So our role, especially the young scholars, is to re-energize the students through our publication and through our, speaking on these various issues, to be able to regain our legitimacy. Finally, we were looking at the signpost of political science in the department, in the School of Social Sciences. And we looked at the signpost and the kind of scholars that have been signposted. Haywood, who else is there? That one and the other one. And we said, isn't there any possibility of an African political philosopher? How is it that we really silence ourselves that much? And that also goes to how we use the literature that we generate as scholars in Makerere University, in Uganda. How do we cite fellow scholars in political science, in sociology, in history, in philosophy? How do we utilize literature that is generated on the African continent? All this actually is what makes humanities a vibrant field if we are to really take ourselves, as they say, take the bull by the horn.
Our College of the Humanities generally, we have been defined as the unit that has been most innovative within the university, especially in the area of program development. For those of you that were here a little earlier in the 90s under the stewardship of Oswald Dorelire, we saw quite an output of new programs that we initiated, and really what contributed significantly to the shape of our college as it is now. Of course, we also then experienced a bit of a focus on us when it has come to the review of programs. Programs that was chaired by Professor Juko, and the subsequent one by Professor Odoi. You'll agree with us that there was a lot of interest in us as a college, and particularly my school, and we contributed significantly to a number of programs that were courses that were shared. And even right now, when you hear the conversation that is going, it really positions us to think and perhaps to think and consider ways in which we may get out of these reviews without being affected significantly. But generally, having said that, if you look at the graduate level, I think the state in itself, the situation is very promising. As you see, we are having this discussion, and something that we, for example, did not have the last 3 years also. So in terms of partnerships and our connections with the collaborators, I think we are doing quite positively. The positive areas have been highlighted, and it will be quite important that we continue to build on this. What is happening now should not be taken for granted. It was a deliberate effort which we attribute initially to the leadership of Professor Edward Chiromera, and I think we are progressing well. So there's a great opportunity that we have here, but we do not need to take this for granted. But we are also still suffering significantly, however, in terms of the numbers and enrollment. At graduate level, if I look at my school, for example, in the Department of History, we have got quite an increment, but this is also due to deliberate efforts after we have realized gaps in terms of training and particularly in terms of staff. We still have gaps in performing arts. We have gaps in religion and peace studies, as well as philosophy. So what really comes to mind here, that it is quite important that we draw on these particular experiences to address those issues of numbers, because there are programs that are not running mainly because we cannot raise the numbers. So what it requires of us is now to strategically and deliberately engage with management and other stakeholders, because there are really structural gaps, there are also historical and cultural gaps, and there are also financial one. I think we need to get to figure out how to get into conversation, because within Makerere University itself, there is also quite a big number of people who are in influential positions, but they yet have to understand what role the humanities and social sciences have, both in academia, but mostly in terms of national development, because we have been now tied onto this issue of counting numbers and counting the money that comes out of that. How we can be able to help and center these disciplines, we need to begin with looking at the curriculum review and the curriculum development. Does the review process take, for example, into account the critical issues in terms of national development? How many of us are aware when we are doing curriculum review of what these priority areas are? There are gaps in that. Are we also doing tracer studies to understand how our products performing wherever they are located? Do we draw stakeholders and put stakeholders in the review process? What is the quality of our stakeholder engagement? Do we give the adequate time that is required? We also need to link up our disciplines through knowledge production and practice. And of course, there's also so much happening in our society, and it will be quite important that we integrate these. I've looked at our curriculum, I've looked at the curriculum review process. We are not making this particular connection. So it will be important that we locate the learning experiences as well in the real places where knowledge production will arise through experiential learning. In development studies, in performing arts, for example, are we able to also use the field experience beyond internship as a space where our students will not only learn, but will be seen to impact and make connection with the society? On dissemination, I think the principal has touched on this, but we need to do more to explore just beyond the traditional spaces of journals, and this will be quite crucial in increasing visibility and relevance. So there are issues of concern about our visibility, and we don't need to take that for granted. In a number of cases, we have tended to move to always defend ourselves. We are important, we are relevant, but I think we need to imagine a little more and address those particular issues. Thank you very much.
What is the role of the humanities in an era of digital disruptions? And I want us to approach that by saying, can we look at our current times and our future? It's not easy to talk about the future of the humanities by looking at the current world, because then we repeat the mistake those who are criticizing the humanities have done. Those who are criticizing the humanities are stuck in a mode of a second-generation university where there are specializations for this, that, as it was in the 60s. You needed sciences to develop society, and that was very important. We are coming out of colonialism, so it was very important. But I think keeping us there will not enable us to see the future. If we are discussing the future of the humanities, let us look at what will the future society look like. What will society in the future look like? And most people here are either scholars or fellows and their mentors and mentees. Just pick a document, any policy document anywhere. Begin with Uganda's National Development Plan. Pick the SDGs and many countries' development plans. What is coming out clearly is that the jobs that are going to survive in the future are the jobs that will not be easily automated. A lot of what we are pushing in the sciences are things that can easily be automated. But someone has given a number of reasons why you need, beyond the automation, you'll need a human being. So the jobs that are going to survive are those jobs that cannot easily be automated. And I think as a college, that's one of the things we need to articulate. The three questions I have is, what will the future look like? What will the future need? What will the challenges of the future look like? It is that we shall know as a society whether to look to STEM, which is also very important, or to look to the humanities. As I've said, the jobs of the future will be those that cannot easily be automated. When we were young and you entered the banking hall, there were so many tellers. Now everyone's doing digital banking back home, okay? So that is one way the job goes. Yes, if you are the Mwasa fraternity, yesterday you saw a picture of someone taking photography from a helicopter. And the statement was, within 10 years, the pilot of the chopper and the photographer have been replaced by a single drone. So where there's automation, those jobs are at risk. Just Google jobs of the future and you'll know that. But why do we need what will the challenges of the future look like, and therefore why will we need the humanities? One, as Professor Kiza said, in the age of digital disruptions, the digital age has given us a lot of information to deal with. How do we assess the credibility of this information? How do we assess its dangers and its safety? We just returned from the Arua conference 2 weeks ago on the fourth industrial revolution. The debate there is the new colonization with information stored elsewhere. How are countries going to assert themselves? That is the politics of information, Mr. Chairman. And that needs a political scientist to analyze for us whether me capturing all this information and storing it in my servers, because you people lack the capacity to store your own information, is a political matter, and whether you are empowered or I am the one who is empowered. I also happen to work with the National Biosafety Committee, and one of the things we do is we license confined field trials. That's like GM trials to be exact. And one of the crises we've had ever since I joined that Biosafety Committee in 2006 is the issue to do with cassava, sir. Cassava, we've had different phases of cassava. For us in Africa, we're just eating cassava and it passes. You have purple-colored cassava, you have white-colored cassava and all that. Now, the politics of cassava is that The Cassava Research Center is at Danforth Center in Texas. The Cassava Gene Bank, the only cassava gene bank in the world, is in Brussels. The cassava eating community is in Africa. And it's the crop of the future, and whoever invests technology in cassava will be the richest. So, at the end of the day, for the last more than 10 years, the African governments have been trying to procure the gene of cassava that we ate in the 60s because it's the only one resilient to cassava mosaic. We have not yet broken through because it's very expensive. Digital disruptions, it is a political matter. If a political scientist had been there and think cassava as a political matter, in Africa would we be at a different stage now? Okay, the other reason we need humanities is to make sense of STEM. What are these things being developed for? And what does it all mean? The other reason we need is the technology and medical advancements will need humanities to ensure progress. Most of you carrying phones, and those who were able to carry phones before I did, like Professor Chiza, will tell you that they have changed their phone more than 10 times. What are they doing with it? How do we sustain? And as Africans, are we going to continue just being consumers, or are we going to also become producers? Now, the way the state is reacting to that is by having phones produced in the country. But you need humanities and social sciences to make sense whether just having a phone company in Namambe is taking us far, or are we owning, are we being recognized, what is going on? And lastly, you need the humanities and social sciences to catalyze innovations. Africa is stuck with so many innovations which were white elephants and which were not suitable to the people. You need the humanities to analyze the space, if you're in architecture, to analyze the use of particular cooking systems. Beyond this level of the science, you need the humanities and social sciences. So machines are good, but you need people to make sense of the machines and to make sense of the information.
Humanities and social sciences are indispensable. And therefore, as we move to the middle income, it used to be 2016, 2020, I don't know where we are now. As we move to the middle income status, as we are told by the politicians and our leaders, we need more of the humanities and social sciences to mitigate the impact of the science, of the natural sciences. Why? Because we move more as we move to the middle income status, as the workers were told in the morning when they were walking to work, as the others were walking to celebrate corruption. There will be more people needing your services as the social and the humanities, because the humanity ethics needs to be taken care of in this case. So the question will be, why is it that we continue to denigrate the social sciences and humanities in the public arena, and yet we know that these are very, very important disciplines? I'll start from the discussion of the complex systems in which we live. The modern world is characterized by problems that involve systems with social and physical subsystems. And these subsystems or social systems also have what we call subsystems and at multi different levels. And in order to understand that, we need both the combination of the natural sciences as well as the social sciences and humanities, because we need to combine the efforts. And if we don't combine, there is no any other discipline that can explain both the world at a macro level, meso level, and micro level at the same time. You can't achieve as a discipline to explain that. Even scholars who have come to explain that have found themselves attempting to merge. The last scholar who is still living, Lord Giddens, tried to combine and called it structuration to explain the existence of the different levels. But he was more focusing on the combining what the macro theorists, micro theorists had done, so that we can be able to bridge the gap. So we're in this complex system of systems and other subsystems. We need both the humanities and the social sciences. So as I have indicated, that there is no methodology that can combine those three levels, the macro, micro, and meso levels. And therefore, even policy, which Professor Kiza here focuses on, policy requires prediction. But traditional definition of prediction does not consider the social complex systems. And the social complex systems are the different topics we listened to since morning, discussing the different levels. We started with the masculinities, changing masculinities and fractured masculinities. Then we went on to look at the different associations or social entrepreneurship, or we all practice. And if you are of that age that is still having some energy, I'm very sure that you wake up very early, or people wake you very early to pick children and drop them. And therefore, somebody, I think, just as was discussing, how do we mitigate that? Do we have expertise that can actually tell us? What about understanding our histories? Do we ignore that as part of that? And then what will we say? So the question again I posed from the beginning still is that how do we continue to degrade these disciplines that seems to be not fall in the mainstream science, but are very, very essential in as we go along with the continuum of development. So there's new ways of thinking that we need to think about, and one of the ways is to look at the role and place of the humanities and social sciences in enabling or facilitating this development, this complex system of development. People talk about development, but development is very complex, involving so many things. You might be in the languages thinking that you are not a part of the development, or development is in economics or in the social sciences. No, you are part. By participating, for instance, in explaining how the translations of these complex words and terms and concepts that work within the society, you are actually contributing or being part of, except that question comes back to what I asked. Why do we continue to degrade disciplines that seem not to fall in the conventional natural sciences? Even in the natural sciences, whenever we get inventions, if you have you invent medicine, or you invent a machine that can create a human being, you still need a humanities and social sciences person to explain the relevance and how it is applied to in today's world. You have a famous story of how they talk about tree planting, and people went to a particular region in this country, I will not name, Mr. Chair. And then they said, okay, we are going to do environmental protection, we are going to plant trees, and the land was there, and they did plant trees. In the evening, the people who came with land cruisers went back to the hotels and separated, we've covered. We've done these 1,000 or 10,000 or 50,000 trees. In the next 10 years, we shall have a greenery around us. They drank, of course, went dancing, they slept. The following day, they went back to check, and add on what they had done, they found there were no trees. For one reason, is that one particular person said these trees they are planted are meant to eliminate your chicken, your goats, and your cows. Just simple innovation. Again, connecting science with the social science and humanities. You need to understand how they work. So therefore, saying that this world is going to develop only on the natural sciences is an illusion. Yeah, I'm sorry to say that. Why? Because you need the humanities and social sciences. And therefore, we have this big problem. Even in Makerere University, we have this concept of reef. Reef is actually social sciences and humanities. Why? Because in those areas, it is not easy to talk about what you call innovations. Because innovations are supposed to be science. You can convert water to gases, and then you can find the characteristics, and that you communicate. In the social sciences and humanities, it takes ages to understand this complex system of or subsystems of our cultures, of our existence, of our ethics. And therefore, if you talk about and you advertise and you don't consider the position of the humanities and social sciences, then you are just going to be in the other side, perpetuating the existence of the natural sciences. And so in conclusion, I would say that the emerging science of complex systems will embrace the humanities and conventional social sciences in a way that it has embraced the concept from the natural sciences as we go along, if the politicians allow. Thank you very much.
Earlier, Chair, you said, what is the role of the university, especially in this issue we're discussing? And when I looked at the historical role of the university, and you have to go back to about 737, for example, where the first university started in Africa, and I'm referring to the formal university, which is still in existence. The University of Zitouna in Tunisia is the oldest formal university in the world, followed by the University of Cairo in Morocco, 859 AD, all in Africa. And then you had universities like Bologna in Italy coming much later, 1088, and then Oxford in 1096, and Harvard 1636. But when you analyze these ancient formal universities, they all focused on inquiry, of the human condition. Of course, most of them were theological institutions in the beginning, before they embraced other disciplines. But the foundation of their inquiry was really humanistic, i.e., how did we get here as human beings? How do we relate? What is the nature of knowledge, and how do we pursue it? And these were the debates which engaged the early scholars. So that, if you ask me, is the historical mission of the university, to engage with knowledge in an epistemological sense, but also to reflect on human existence. So when you look at ancient disciplines like philosophy or literature or religion or poetry and so on, they were really focused on this question of understanding human existence. If you go back to Socrates and Plato and their debates, you'll again see that they were focusing on these issues, but broadening them to include politics or leadership, social relations, and so on and so forth. So, Chair, that is my first point, for us to note that the humanities need to maintain their original mission, and that's what makes us special. But also, beginning in the Renaissance and later in the first Industrial Revolution, 1760 onwards, we see this shift towards utilitarianism. How does knowledge then cater for human needs in terms of, for example, addressing environmental concerns? Even in literature, we have, for example, a movement which was called Romanticism, which as early as 1800s, late 1700s, raised these debates about using literature to raise environmental consciousness. So it's not as if it is the environmentalists who began these debates, actually. It was the humanities who started these utilitarian debates. The third point I want to raise is that the Industrial Revolution and other revolutions that have happened after, the ICT revolution, for example, have given us new tools through ICTs. And my view is that we need to embrace these tools to enrich our disciplines. For example, we are now talking, Chair, you talked about robotics, you talked about intelligent design, using machines to imitate the human mind and the human relations and so on and so forth. In my view, we can, in fact, we need to embrace these tools as humanities without necessarily compromising on what we do. I am talking, for example, from the field of literature where I belong. We have moved away from just looking at literature as printed texts. People are now analyzing blogs, they're analyzing social media posts, they're analyzing narratives on soaps on TV, and so on and so forth. So the nature of the text has shifted. And so we need to move with the times. And that is my third take. that when we do this, we actually empower the humanities and social sciences. We do not necessarily go into what we call professionalization. You remember that debate in the 90s, which Mamdani integrated to scholars in the marketplace. But for me, I look at it as empowerment, empowering the humanities and the social sciences. And my last point, Chair, what are the special skills that we have? Whether you're a scientist researching robotics or medicine or new HIV discoveries, you need the language to communicate it, whether you like it or not. And one of the things scientists are now having to struggle with is communicating science. And so they are now allying with us in journalism, in literature, in what they are calling science communication. Because they need to communicate these patterns. They need to make people appreciate innovations, as Dr. State said, and yourself. Because otherwise, unless you anchor science and scientific innovations into anthropological realities, your innovations will not have impact. Finally, I would like to argue that we are now in an era of inter and multidisciplinarity. We can no longer afford to work in silos. Whether we are humanities, whether we are social scientists, whether we are scientists of any sort, we need each other. And we need to build these synergies. A public health researcher needs a journalist, needs a language expert. You heard Dr. Van Tibia researching on maternal health, and she needs a dictionary of medical terms. So I think as we think about the humanities going forward, we need to also think about how do we work together without building silos. The university in the American world has moved away from what we are doing here in Makerere. You'll find someone doing medicine, but they're offering a course in language, they're offering a course in anthropology, they're offering a course in whatever, and that makes them a better doctor in the end. Thank you very much.
The key resource people have provoked us sufficiently. We want now to have a dialogue, not a monologue, a dialogue, so that we can have interaction.
My experience is that it's the perfect time to be a student right now in the College of Humanities because of that interdisciplinarity. It has been an amazing 1.5 years, and the highlights have been in the last 3 months where I've had opportunities to talk with historians and people from literature, and they are giving me perspectives. I've been looking at the social, cultural, and historical background along which empowerment is being done. And when I move out of the university and I move out there, I've been talking with youth and parents and cultural leaders and religious leaders, and I bring back the message that so many of these people are eager to interact with the university.
I also think that humanities provide global competencies. For example, we are talking about globalization. How are we going to work with Germans and French and all these people without languages? I also note that science innovations are meant for people, and you cannot innovate for people when you really don't understand them. And you're not going to understand them unless you go through social science and humanities. And I also add that my training, gender responsive researchers equipped for agricultural transformation, where we are training plant breeders, has enabled me to understand that actually the scientists need us more than we need them, because there is a lot they don't understand about the society they have in mind when they are doing their work. Finally, rethinking and redefining new realities requires a lot of humanistic competencies, which we lose if we continue appreciating people who are demonizing and reducing humanities as less important. No country, no, the world will not develop unless we work together as scientists, both social scientists, humanities, and hard science. And thank you very much.
Maybe it is time, since we are already converted chair, that we focused much more on the future with humanities and social sciences. And this quickly relates to your interesting comment on whether we are in Lamentations or Acts of the Apostles. We need action, and what disturbs me as a scholar in the university, a lecturer for big classes, and what we are so much used to, which seems to be a very obvious phenomenon, strikes. So the big question here is, I think we need an action to address the lamentations on strikes here, and I'm challenging humanities and social sciences and actors in management who are from this field of disciplines.
How do we make entry points into the discussions? For example, the ones which Professor Salasari has just talked about. They are discussing, for example, cassava, whatever, where they are stored, and how they are affecting politics in the future as to who accesses what. How do we, as people from humanities and social sciences, create entry points so that we engage these people?
We need to reflect on ourselves as social science and humanities. If, for example, we look at the number of students we teach, vis-a-vis those who are being taught in sciences, are we really crazy? Do we really have a comparative advantage over them, or they do have a comparative advantage over us? That's one question. How many people from CHOOS, for example, recently got the funds from RIF? We are in the same university, okay? How much money do you contribute to the university's wage bill as CHOOS compared with the sciences, maybe VET or College of Medicine? What are the cut-off points for our courses compared with the courses in humanities and sciences?
As we reflect on the future, let us look at the past as well, and then look at where it is, then we shall be able to determine the future. For instance, if we are not training postgraduate people who are coming out of our nurseries, then that means the contribution is a little bit threatened. Just look at the statistics in terms of the production of postgraduate people we used to have. Each of the deans should look at their schools and ask, what has been the output in terms of postgraduate training? Then, Lamentations maybe will be looked at as a history. Thank you.
A few days ago, I was thinking about someone who does not have history. And I was like, tell me about a man without history, and I will give you a vanished man, someone who has disappeared. You know, when the president talks about scrapping the humanities and the social sciences, I'm like, what is he going to say? Is he going to rub away the 33 years of life as a president? What is he going to say when he leaves eventually? So we cannot actually do without the humanities. And then promoting the sciences, the natural sciences over humanities is going to tilt the boat to one side. Diversity is going to vanish. And then, of course, the general program is going to be shaken.
We are talking about the future of humanity. But our professors have not given us a brief history of humanities and the social sciences and their contribution throughout the ages. For instance, you should have told us what was done in the Academy of Plato. What was he teaching? What contribution did he make? The Russian of Aristotle. Our Dean of Languages talked about, of course, universities in Africa and all that. But I think that should have come and actually reminded us that universities have always tried to understand human condition. But how much have we contributed to that, to dealing with the human, or to solving human challenges? Then it's education. What would be the purpose of education? Because now humanities and social science are being criticized on the basis of failure to produce what they call employable products. We need a person to help us understand the purpose of education right from ancient period, from the period of Aristotle and the rest who try to engage with this discipline?
We are looking at the future of humanities and social science. And I could rather say we are relevant, but we are not visible. And there are a number of issues why we are not visible. And there is a lot which we have to learn from those brothers and sisters of ours in natural sciences. The way we teach, first of all. We are interested in admitting huge numbers of students and all methodologies. Most of the time they rotate around theories. When it comes to practice, it is marginal. Our students, our products out there, when they reach there, they don't have enough confidence to articulate themselves and inform decisions in an organization.
The bigger question we should be asking is how do we understand the university in African context? Has it remained the same since it was introduced? You've heard the first organized formal university started in Africa, but modern understanding of what the university is what the colonialists introduced here. So has the university as introduced in our case here by the British remained the same? Has its mission remained the same? Today it is the humanities, social sciences. Tomorrow it could be physics because it's producing graduates who are not either getting jobs or producing commodities for the market. The other day it could be engineers because they are not making bulbs to put on the market. The bulbs continue coming from China and so on and so forth. So how do we really understand what the university is, its role, and who is actually defining this university? Is it our government sitting in Kampala or wherever, or is it somebody standing in New York and London and continuing to say those graduates you are producing in this discipline could be produced elsewhere, because such regiments, such orders or such thinking has been there before. So this is to me the most critical thing. Here, of course, we have been touched and we are panicking, but it's an entire institution that is really being shaken. And the science people, to me, one of the suggestions I'm making is one way or the other we should have a dialogue as a university, a university-wide dialogue with medicine, with engineering, and so on. Because someone who is not based in the university, probably somebody who is not based in the country, is trying to define what a university is and what it should do for Ugandan society.
I think one thing we need to do as an immediate intervention is a project I'm working on with the Dean of Social Sciences on creating a Center for Language and Center for Teaching and Learning. Centers like that help to equip people with writing and scholarly skills. Whether you are a researcher in physics, you have to write well. Whether you are a doctor, you need to communicate what you're doing. So this center we are going to propose to Andrew Mello.
Again, Andrew Mello.
Funding it with the RIF. The funding it with the RIF, I agree. But Andrew Mello is to start this center. And he's going to really infuse all the teaching we're doing as JUICE initially, but eventually as a university. So that every course you teach has an element of writing, of critical analysis, of scholarly analysis. So then you can produce a student who can actually communicate what they learn
Isn't it a shame that you have a graduate who can't write an application letter? Have you seen the letters they write to us, asking for this or that? They can't even write application letters. So that's what this center will do, and I hope that will be a major contribution to choose. Thank you very much.
We need to focus and also address the issues of today in order to position ourselves well for the future. The Dean School of Languages has talked to the Language Center, and indeed for us who are deans and are charged with the examination process even at master's level, we have a very big concern. So as we project into the future, we need to look at the undergraduate level. What is it that we can do to be able to position ourselves to get people and graduates who will help us move forward in the directions we are seeking for the future. And what you might also realize that at a postgraduate level, unless now we engage with government and it starts also providing support, or we have got support like we have got from our partners, most of the people at master's level whom we are receiving, in a number of cases, are working people who need perhaps a qualification in order to keep their jobs. And that's why at times we don't understand what they have written, what they are writing, and neither do they understand because they don't write that.
I would like to focus on the issue of the scope of the universities and the scope of the humanities, and whether they should be well demarcated or all-embracing. I think we all need to know that university education, someone talked about historicization, and there was Nixon or Professor Tabaluka. The historicization of universities, you read that universities went through the first generation, second generation, and now we have third generation universities. Third generation universities are knowledge hubs. They are very multidisciplinary in nature. First and second generation universities were very professional, very linear, and people wanted clearly demarcated boundaries. If you're going to be a doctor, a professional doctor, you did not need to know much about politics. So if also you're going to be a professional political scientist, just be that and nothing else.
When you talk about the scope, the language, the unique saying, propositions, etc., I thought you were just indicating that there is supposed to be another conversation that we are hoping to have. And that is part of what we call the decolonization project, because the decolonization will not only happen in one seminar, but it is a process where we continue debating and discussing. And back to the social science and humanities, that's where we excel. Somebody asked about the vacation, employable. Again, that is scientism being imported or exported to the social science and humanities. For us in the humanities and social sciences, we teach skills, and those skills is about knowledge production. We're not teaching the vacation. We're not teaching you to go and do something and write a one-page paper and publish it, and then you get an innovation patented. We give critical thinking skills. How do we handle that? This is what the social science and humanities are all. Critical thinking. How do we interrogate? How do we discuss the science? How do we discuss the way social science and the humanities are being treated? Are we relevant? If yes, we are. How? Then we bring in these skills that may not be so unique to the natural sciences. And then if we do that, then we'll be very relevant.
At Connecticut, one of the people, I think it was Provost, said that the world, where it is going, the skills that will survive are three. Critical thinking is one that will survive. Organizing ideas. We normally call it report writing, but that's a pedestrian way of saying it. But organizing ideas. Because many of us may write, but actually the ideas are not organized. That would be a critical skill that we shall need. The other one that doesn't really seem to go away, conflict resolution. Machines cannot do it. And those are resident in humanities and social sciences. So when the moderator talked about what do we tell our students, then I said, actually, I think we've been talking to ourselves. We also need to engage students. So with the power, and where is the money?
And the money.
And the money, I think we can have student engagement, a student symposium that arms them to have the right language, but just to pledge that whatever opportunity we shall have as a college leadership, we shall use it to pursue these aspirations. And we rely on you to keep this fire burning. I would like to also, say that there are many good things that are happening and we are doing, but maybe we are not recording enough. We are not visibility. It is us to create it. So, for example, the Gelder. How many people on Gelder Henko? You'll be glad to note that you'll be followed by 60 more others because Gelder Henko has extended the PhD support.
3 cohorts?
Yeah, 3 cohorts.
In 3 years.
So that gives us a ray of space to actually do something within that. But I would like, with the power and the money, to declare this conversation partially closed. Because we are opening another one. All these questions that the deans and all of you have raised have to be answered. Thank you.